Uju Ezeani was the kind of woman that turned heads before she even stepped into a room. At just 35, she had already built a multi-million naira tech conglomerate with branches across Nigeria and Ghana. She was elegance wrapped in discipline, class soaked in quiet power. From the outside, her life seemed perfect: custom-tailored gowns, a glass mansion in Asekoro, weekend brunches with ministers' wives, and private jets that whisked her off to business meetings in Paris. But if there was one thing that defined Uju more than success, it was loyalty. And no one had received that loyalty more than Amaka. Amaka was her late uncle's daughter, a girl Uju had taken in 10 years ago after a fatal car accident left her orphan at just 15. She had been a scrawny girl from Enugu back then, wide-eyed and awkward, but Uju took her in and treated her like blood. She sponsored her education through private schools and sent her to fashion school in Italy. When Amaka returned home, she gave her the job of creative director in her fashion tech hybrid company, UMOD, even though many board members opposed it. To Uju, Amaka wasn't just family. She was her project, her baby girl. And Amaka, she played the part to perfection. "You're too kind, sis," Amaka always said, her smile soft and grateful. "You're my blood," Uju would reply. "What else is wealth if not shared with those we love?" But Amaka's smile was hollow behind closed doors. She hated being called the baby girl. Hated being reminded that everything she had was Uju's. Her clothes, Uju's brand. Her friends, Uju's circle. Her reputation, Uju's stamp of approval. Every single room she entered, people whispered, "That's Uju's cousin. Uju's girl." Amaka had grown up. She wasn't that awkward teenager anymore. She was now a stunning, confident woman who ran a part of a multi-billion naira business. But somehow, she still lived in Uju's shadow. And what made it worse? Uju didn't know she was doing it. It started small. A confidential design leaked to a competitor. A secret meeting with one of Uju's high-profile clients behind her back. A deleted email. A rerouted contract. Amaka told herself it was harmless, just small rebellions. Nothing serious. But the moment Senator Ifeanyi Dike entered the picture, everything changed. The senator was wealthy, powerful, and clearly smitten with Uju. He pursued her with quiet elegance, gifting rare art pieces, making anonymous donations to her charity, even attending her tech launches when he hated publicity. Uju, guarded as ever, was still considering the relationship. Amaka, however, made her move. It was one of those high-end charity galas in Maitama. Uju was speaking on stage, giving her signature confidence-fueled speech about women in business. Senator Dike sat in the front row, clapping the loudest. But it was Amaka he saw after the event, leaning against the marble pillar, drink in hand, her red dress hugging her curves just enough to tease. He approached her. They talked. And that night, while Uju slept in her penthouse unaware, her baby girl was already whispering secrets into her suitor's ear. 1 year passed. 1 whole year of quiet betrayal. They met in hotel rooms, always far from town. Amaka told the senator everything, Uju's secrets, her weaknesses, her fears. She laughed at his jokes, memorized his preferences, flattered his ego. It was easy. All she had to do was make him feel like Uju never truly saw him, and that she did. And when Senator Dike proposed, it wasn't to Uju. It was to Amaka. Uju didn't see it coming. The news broke over champagne and betrayal. It was supposed to be a company gala. Uju had planned everything, dressed in a royal blue gown, hair slicked back, diamonds glinting under the light. She expected a business announcement. Instead, the senator walked onto the stage, took the mic, and called Amaka forward. He proposed in front of the entire crowd. Cameras flashed. Gasps filled the room. Uju froze. When she turned, she met Amaka's eyes. There was no guilt there. Just victory. Uju stood still as the ballroom erupted into applause. Her cousin, her sister, was on one knee, tears of joy streaking her face, clutching the hand of the man Uju had once dreamt of building a life with. She blinked slowly, her palms cold. Senator Ifeanyi's voice echoed through the speakers. I found love where I least expected it. Thank you for saying yes, Amaka. Cameras turned to Uju, expecting a reaction. She smiled. A soft, practiced smile. The kind she wore in boardrooms when facing men who underestimated her. But inside, a silent storm was forming. She left quietly that night, avoiding questions. Her driver knew better than to speak. Back at the mansion, she walked straight into her private lounge, shut the door, and screamed. Not from heartbreak, but from rage. She wasn't angry because Amaka had fallen in love. She was furious that she'd been played like a fool in her own kingdom. 2 days passed. Amaka never called. Never explained. Uju didn't chase. But she watched. That week, Amaka's face was everywhere, blogs, gossip sites, even the cover of Style Afrique. She was now the future Mrs. Dyke, no longer Uju's cousin. She had finally stepped out of the shadow. But what she didn't realize, she hadn't stepped into the light. She had stepped into the crosshairs. The call. It came late at night. A blocked number. Uju almost didn't answer. But something told her to pick. Miss Esioni. The voice was male. Deep. Calm. Yes. I work for someone whose identity you don't need to know. But we've been monitoring your cousin. Uju's heartbeat spiked. What do you mean monitoring? Let's just say your cousin has been playing more than just emotional games. You need to check your company's financial records. Specifically, 3 international wire transfers made last quarter. The line went dead. Uju didn't sleep that night. She called her accountant at 5 a.m. By 9 a.m., it was confirmed. 3 transfers totaling 87 million Nigerian nairas had been made to a fashion supplier in Italy. The orders never arrived. The supplier. Non-existent. The signature. Amaka's. Not only had Amaka stolen from the company, she'd also used Uju's name on fake invoices. The betrayal wasn't just personal. It was criminal. But Uju didn't react. Not yet. She planned. Amaka returned to the mansion 4 days later, glowing like a bride in waiting. She entered the dining room to find Uju seated calmly, sipping orange juice. A document lay neatly on the table. Amaka frowned. What's this? Your resignation, Uju replied without looking up. Amaka chuckled, brushing her braids over her shoulder. You're joking. Uju's voice was cold. You forged my signature on international wire transfers. Amaka froze. Her smile faltered. I've reversed the transactions. But I'm not pressing charges. Yet. So what is this? A warning. No. It's a mercy, Uju said, finally looking up. Leave quietly, and you get to keep your name. Push me, and I will ruin you slowly. Amaka stared at her, a mixture of fear and defiance in her eyes. I see, she whispered. So you finally realize I'm no longer the little girl you used to control. I never tried to control you, Uju replied. I raised you. I gave you everything. I gave you loyalty. Amaka snapped. But you never saw me as your equal. Only as your project. Your pet. Uju stood. Her voice was sharp now. You wanted your own spotlight. You have it. But remember, every light casts a shadow. And I'm done shielding you from it. She walked out, heels clicking on marble. Amaka stood there, her hands trembling, not with fear, but with rage. She wouldn't go down without a fight. The next day, a blog post surfaced. Uju Eziani exposed how Nigeria's female tech giant launders money through fashion arm. Anonymous sources, alleged witnesses, fake screenshots, and at the center of it all, Amaka's whispers hidden behind a fake account. Uju smiled when she saw it. She expected it. She counted on it. Because while Amaka played dirty, Uju played smart. For the first time in weeks, Uju Eziani laughed. Not a chuckle. Not a smile. A deep, cold laugh. The kind you laugh when someone throws a stone from the bottom, forgetting you built the mountain they stand on. The blog post had gone viral. Her face was everywhere. Words like a fraud, laundering, scandal buzzed like flies in the air. Her PR team panicked. Her investors grew restless. But Uju, she was calm. Because she had been preparing for this day. 3 weeks before Amaka's betrayal became public, Uju had started making quiet moves. She transferred key projects into a new company under her middle name, Adiz Holdings. The fashion arm Amaka once managed was now nothing more than a name, no assets, no data, no power. When the blogs dragged Umot's fashion department, it was already a dead entity. They were punching air. But the real game, it wasn't online. It was Senator Ifeanyi Dike. Uju knew men like Ifeanyi. Wealthy, powerful, hungry, but terrified of scandal. She didn't need to fight him. She just needed to shake the table hard enough for his secrets to fall out. And she knew just where to start. Trisha enters. Trisha was a former beauty queen turned luxury event planner, and one of Ifeanyi's exes. She had once confided in Uju about a disturbing encounter with the senator, but Uju had dismissed it as drama. Now, it made sense. Trisha still held receipts, voice notes, chat logs, and a single video that could end Ifeanyi's political career overnight. It took Uju one visit, one cup of mint tea, and a promise of a favor in return. By morning, Trisha's files were in Uju's possession. The chessboard moves. Days later, a sealed envelope arrived at the senator's office. No sender. Just 2 words written in cursive across the front. Back off. Inside were 3 still images from Trisha's video, blurred just enough to serve as a threat, not yet a scandal. And just like that, Ifeanyi backed away from Amaka. He told her gently at first, "I think we rushed things." Then he ignored her calls. Then blocked her number. And finally, a press statement dropped. Senator Dike and Miss Amaka Eziani are no longer engaged. We wish her well in her future endeavors. No wedding. No explanation. Just silence. Amaka shattered. She stormed into Uju's office unannounced, her eyes red. "You ruined me." "No," Uju said calmly, not looking up. "You ruined yourself. I just watched. You had no right. I had every right. I made you. I fed you. And you beat the hand that saved you from obscurity." Tears welled up in Amaka's eyes, but there was no sympathy in Uju's voice. "You could have built your own empire. But instead, you tried to steal mine." Uju stood up, circled her desk, and faced her. "So let me make this clear. I'm not just cutting you off, Amaka. I'm erasing you." Within days, Amaka's world unraveled. Her fashion visa to Italy was revoked. Her apartment in Metoma, paid yearly by Uju, was terminated. Her luxury car, repossessed. The international fashion magazine she was supposed to cover, pulled her shoot. Even her Instagram verification disappeared. Uju didn't touch her. She just made a few calls. Because when you own the rooms people are trying to enter, you don't slam doors. You vanish the hallway. But Uju wasn't done. Not yet. Because as she reviewed Trisha's files again, she noticed something strange. One of the accounts Ifeanyi had used to send Amaka gifts and money was being monitored by EFCC. A flagged shell account, linked to a major fraud investigation. Amaka had no idea. She wasn't just guilty of betrayal. She was now entangled in something far bigger than her ambition. Uju placed a call to her lawyer. "Send the files to the agency," she said. "And tell them I'll cooperate." There was a pause. "Are you sure, Mo? This could destroy her." Uju's voice didn't tremble. "She destroyed herself the moment she turned me into her enemy." Amaka sat in a short taxi ride back to her aunt's house in Garki. No mansion. No cameras. No glam squad. Just silence. Her phone buzzed. A private number again. She answered. A deep voice spoke. "Miss Ezioni, this is the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. You are needed for questioning regarding ongoing investigations. You have 48 hours to comply." The line went dead. Amaka's hands trembled. This wasn't just war. This was a reckoning. Amaka didn't sleep that night. The EFCC message echoed in her head, each word scraping across her mind like a broken record. For the first time in her life, she wasn't angry. She was afraid. Because she knew what she had signed. What she had spent. What she had pretended not to know. The next morning, dressed in a plain black dress and her hair tied back, Amaka walked into the EFCC headquarters alone. 2 hours passed. Then 5. Then 8. She came out pale. Quiet. Her lips pressed into a thin, trembling line. She had signed a document pledging full cooperation. Because if she didn't, she was looking at 15 years in prison. Meanwhile, Uju sat in her office reviewing numbers when a knock interrupted her thoughts. Her personal assistant, Eleho, walked in with a strange expression. "There's a woman asking to see you," she said. "She says her name is Adeabi Mochuku." Uju froze. The name hit her like a stone to the chest. Adeabi was her mother's closest friend before the car crash that took her parents' lives. The same Adeabi who had disappeared shortly after Uju took custody of Amaka. "Let her in," Uju said quietly. Adeabi looked older. Her eyes were heavy with stories, her face lined with time. She sat gently, her hands shaking as she held a small, brown envelope. "I heard what happened between you and Amaka," she said slowly. "But I need to tell you something, before it's too late." Uju raised a brow. What could possibly be left to say? Adeabi sighed deeply. "You think Amaka is your cousin, but she's not." The silence in the room sharpened. Uju blinked. "What are you talking about?" "She's not your uncle's daughter," Adeabi said. "She's your father's daughter. Your half-sister." The words fell like thunder. Adeabi opened the envelope. Inside were 2 documents, a birth certificate and a letter from Uju's father dated over 25 years ago. "Her name is Amaka. Please raise her like your own. Her mother can't. She's mine. I beg you, Adeabi, don't let Uju find out." Uju's hand trembled as she read it. The betrayal didn't just come from Amaka. It came from her father. Everything changed. All this time, Amaka had been family by blood, not just by obligation. But Uju's blood felt cold. Conflicted. Yes, Amaka had stolen from her. Yes, she had betrayed her trust, her company, her heart. But now it was more complicated. She hadn't just punished a thief. She had crushed a sister. That night, Uju stood by her bedroom window, watching the city lights flicker. Guilt crept into her bones. Could this be why Amaka had always felt like an outsider? Why she had clung so tightly to power, to love, to recognition? Because she knew she belonged, but was never acknowledged. Because she was told to keep quiet. Because Uju never knew. 3 days later, Uju walked into the EFCC holding area, her heels echoing against the tiled floor. Amaka looked up from the metal bench. Her face was thinner, her eyes hollow. "You came to see the victory, right?" she muttered bitterly. "To see me in cuffs." Uju sat beside her. "I came to tell you. I knew who you are." Amaka turned slowly. "What?" "I know you're my sister." Amaka's face cracked. Emotion battled with pride. "I didn't know either, not until last year," she whispered. "I found one of Dad's old letters in your mother's Bible. But I was scared. Scared that if you found out, you'd see me differently. That you'd kick me out. So instead, you tried to take everything." Uju asked, voice sharp. Amaka looked down. "I didn't know how to be loved without earning it. And I hated being loved with conditions." Uju exhaled. She stood. "I'm dropping the charges." Amaka's head shot up. "What?" I said. "I'm letting you go. But not because I forgive you. Not because you deserve it. But because our father failed us both. And I refuse to carry the same poison he passed down." Amaka said nothing. Tears filled her eyes, but they didn't fall. She didn't know how to cry anymore. 1 month later, Uju held a press conference. She addressed the rumors, the blog lies, and the internal audit results that cleared her name. She didn't mention Amaka. She didn't need to. That chapter was closed. Her brand, Umod, came back stronger. Her charity expanded. But something in her heart remained broken, quiet, cautious. Because once, she loved the girl like a sister. And discovered she truly was. But too late. Amaka, now living in a small flat in Nyanya, worked at a tiny local tailoring shop. No luxury. No cars. No applause. But every night, she stared at the single photograph she kept beside her bed. The one of her and Uju on a yacht in Greece, laughing like children. And every night, she whispered the same thing. "I didn't want your money. I just wanted you to say I belonged." 6 months had passed since Amaka's release. Uju had moved on, or at least, she convinced herself she had. She buried herself in work, charity, and expansion. Her face returned to billboards, her name to Forbes lists, but something inside her remained hollow. A silence she couldn't feel. One rainy afternoon, Elaho entered her office again. "There's someone here to see you," she said. "He says, he's your uncle. Your father's brother." Uju stiffened. "My father had no surviving siblings." "He says he's not surviving, just forgotten." Uju's pulse quickened. "Send him in." The man who walked in was tall, slim, and dark-skinned, with eyes that reminded her of old family albums. He introduced himself as Uncle Pascal, a man who left the country 28 years ago after a fallout with Uju's father. "I came back when I heard what happened between you and the girl." "Amaka? What about her?" Uju asked carefully. Pascal sighed and sat. "She wasn't just your father's daughter. She was your twin." The word tilted. Uju blinked slowly. "That's impossible." "No," Pascal said. "That's the secret your mother died protecting." The secret uncovered. Pascal told her everything. Back then, her parents had twins, Uju and Amaka. But Uju's maternal grandparents, powerful and traditional, rejected the idea of raising the twins due to superstition. In panic, her father sent Amaka away, registering her as his niece, not daughter. Adeabi was paid monthly to raise her until he could figure out what to do. But when Uju's parents died in the car crash, the truth remained buried. Only Adeabi and Pascal knew. Adeabi kept silent out of fear. Pascal kept silent out of shame. "I tried to step in when I heard she was struggling, but it was too late," he said quietly. "By the time I returned, she already hated you." That night, Uju didn't sleep. Twins. She and Amaka shared the same blood, same birthday, same eyes, yet were raised as strangers. And now, they were strangers again. The next morning, she made a call. Uju invited Amaka to speak at Wings, her foundation's annual mentorship gala. 1,000 girls from across Nigeria were present. Amaka had no idea she was on the program until she arrived. "What am I doing here?" she asked, confused, standing backstage. Uju handed her a mic. "Tell them your story." Amaka stared. "What?" "You've seen the worst of envy, of hunger for belonging, of betrayal. You've survived it. These girls are on the edge. Pull them back." Amaka looked down at the mic, then up at Uju. Tears brimmed but didn't fall. "Why are you doing this?" "Because we were born under the same sky," Uju whispered. "And I've learned that lifting someone who tried to break you is the real test of power." Amaka stepped onto the stage. She spoke for 20 minutes. Not as a fashion influencer. Not as a disgraced heiress. But as a survivor. A broken girl, searching for identity in a world that only respected wealth. She confessed everything. The lies. The theft. The pain. The root of her hate. And in the end, she said something that left the crowd silent. "I wanted my sister to see me. But I was so hungry to be seen, I became someone she couldn't look at." Applause. Then silence. Then a single clap from the crowd. Then 1,000 more. When she walked off the stage, Uju embraced her. Not as a boss. Not even as a savior. But as what she had always been. Her twin. Months later, a new company emerged, Feather and Flame, a mentorship and fashion incubator for vulnerable girls and abused teens. Amaka ran it. Uju funded it. Together, they built something better than a legacy. They built healing. Moral lessons. Betrayal hurts deepest when it comes from family, but healing becomes possible when truth enters the room. Power isn't in revenge, it's in knowing when to rebuild, and with whom.
For more stories like this, like, comment, and subscribe to our channel.